Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we are continuing our Bamboozled series.
Yeah, Bamboozled.
I feel like we needed sound effects in that moment.
Yeah, I didn't have any in me today.
What was our series before where we were, the dynamic duos, and we were like, pew, pew, pew,
pew,
we were like
pew,
doing
pew.
all the sound effects. Yeah. But I don't think, the only one that came to mind is the womp womp.
I feel like bamboozle is already like a strong word. You've been bamboozled. I don't know. It's good. It's a life of its own. So we really just wanted to punch it home.
Listen, we apologize. We didn't have any sound effects.
Yeah.
Next time we're going to just come in real hard with the sound effects.
I'd be more prepared.
For those that enjoy it. For those that fast forward to our intro, then, hey, and we're about to get into it.
Yeah, you missed all our rantings about not having sound effects.
You did. But we have to mention it anyway.
Because that's just what we're thinking, and that's what we do.
But yeah, we're continuing the Bamboozled series. We hope that you've been enjoying this series. We for sure have been enjoying this series.
Yeah.
We didn't know the series was going to be, and we say this all the time, but it's been real fruitful and we've learned a lot. And it's like, man, This has been a really good series. So we're glad we're doing it, and we hope that you're enjoying it and learning along with us.
So many nuggets that, Holy Spirit just reveals, and we're like, wow. I mean, we already picked them because they're interesting, and we know that, there's deceit and all this stuff, but then we just get a whole other revelation, and we're just like, yes, this is good.
Yes, we understand the Bible better. Yes, praise God.
Yes, thank you, Jesus, for giving us revelation.
Oh, man, it's the best. It's truly the best. Now, Yadi already said it, but we always want to give a caveat because we don't know if this is your first episode or your 140th episode. We don't know when you've been listening.
You might just be dropping in.
Exactly. And before we get into it, we just wanted to let you know that when we mean bamboozled, when we say bamboozled, we mean that these people are being lied to or deceived. Although we're real peppy starting this conversation.
Yeah. And it sounds real fun, like, woohoo, bamboozled.
What the people went through was not peppy.
No.
It was actually quite sad. But God, He made a way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's what we're going to talk about today. So today we have an amazing story. And we're going to talk about Judah and Tamar.
Ooh.
Pause for effect.
Could it be scandalous?
Could it be the romance of a lifetime?
Could it be unbelievable?
Could it be unbelievable? It's the Bible. Yes, it is. Oh man. But yeah, so I don't know if you know who these people are. And if you do or if you don't, it does not matter because, hey, that's why you're here. And we're going to tell you anyway.
We're here to help you.
Yes. Because for us, we read the Bible, sure. But I don't think either of us are studying this right now.
No, we are not.
So it's a refresher for us too.
Tell us who they are.
All right, that's enough of our shenanigans. So as we've been doing in all the previous episodes, which we recommend you listen to because we're biased, but they're great. We will be giving you the backstory first about, how we got to this situation. And then we'll begin with our actual feature presentation for tonight. Okay? Today, whenever you're listening to us, we record at night. That's why I said that, just for some backstage info. So to start, let's tell you who Judah is. Judah is the son of Jacob. That's right. Jacob, the one who just got bamboozled 2 episodes ago into marrying 2 women. Jacob is this guy's dad.
Yeah. So I guess bamboozling happens in the family.
Yes. And we had mentioned that before. Remember, we were talking about lying and we were talking about Abraham and how it gets passed down from generation to generation, hence generational curses. That's a whole nother episode, but yes, Jacob is Judah's dad. Judah is actually one of 12 brothers who, if you didn't know, they make up the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Because Jacob is also aka Israel. God renamed him and he is the father of Judah. So we're on the same page.
So now you know a little lineage there.
Concise lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel. So now let's get teachy. Jesus is a descendant of Judah.
Yeah. So as you hear this story, just keep that in mind, that even though this all sounds a little crazy and there's deceit and all this stuff, Jesus used it all. So
he's like, I'm gonna pick these dysfunctional people.
Yeah.
They're gonna be my family.
They just crazy enough to work.
Yes. So we do also wanted to just caveat, we did a whole episode about the genealogy of Jesus. We did a whole series about it about a year ago. We don't remember what episode that was, but it's there in the list that you're looking at now. And it's pretty detailed. So if you want to know more about the genealogy of Jesus, please check that out.
Something to do after this episode.
All right, so here we go. So we will start in the beginning of Genesis 38. Once we start mentioning the Bible verses, as always, it's going to be in the NLT. And here we go. So Judah in Genesis 38, the beginning of Genesis 38, Judah has just moved to a new city and he met a nice lady. He decided to settle down and have a family.
How sweet.
This sounds good. It sounds real sweet.
Starting out great.
It sounds delightful. So the couple, Judah and his wife, we don't know her name, unfortunately, but Judah and his wife, they end up having 3 boys. And as was customary, Judah arranges for his eldest son, to marry a young lady named Tamar, because that's just what a dad did back then.
Yes.
In this context, we just find wives for their children. That's what they do. And it's going to take a turn. Unfortunately, this particular son is not such a good guy, and he dies. Due to the custom at the time, Judah then has to have his second son marry Tamar. Now, let's give you some Bible because it's sounding a little wonky already. So Genesis 38 verses 6 through 8 says, in the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son to marry a young woman named Tamar. But was a wicked man in the Lord's sight, so the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Er's brother Onan, go and marry Tamar, as our law requires of the brother of a man who has died. You must produce an heir for your brother. So much going on already. We're just jumping into the deep end, but some teachiness for you. So this union of, somebody dies and then the brother has to marry the wife was considered a Levirate marriage. And it was an ancient practice that was done in the Near East that was later codified in Deuteronomy 25. So if you want to reference that and read more about that, you can go back because it was given to Moses. It's a part of the Mosaic Law, as it's called. It was essentially given to Moses by God as some of the certain just customs and rules that the Israelites had to follow, right? So basically, this means that if a man died before he had a child, his brother had to marry his wife, and their first child would carry on the first dead brother's name and in place of the lineage. So essentially, died.
Right.
If for some reason Onan and Tamar had a child, which they did not, then that child would carry on the lineage of who is the one that died. Which is interesting because when you actually think about it, regardless who has children, the lineage is still being carried on because they're all male sons.
Yeah, I was going to say, even if he didn't marry Tamar, whoever he married, that would carry his line. But I guess once you married or the brother joined, in this case, Tamar, it was instead of going to a different avenue, going through a different, your brother already married her, so let's just, I guess maybe to keep, her side of the family or something, since it's the firstborn.
Maybe to keep the lineage pure, right? Because it was very clear that Israelites should marry Israelites and stuff like that.
Yeah, because that's who was chosen initially, so it's
Yeah, and now they wanted to honor her as well, right? She's a widow, so let's take care of her. Let's just give you the other brother. So there was a lot of things that sort of make sense.
Because that was kind of part of, you got married and that was part as a woman, you bear children. And so the fact that she wasn't able to because he died before, it's okay, well, now allow me to still have a child in your family kind of thing.
And we can do a whole episode on that because I feel like there's a lot in there. But again, if you want to refer and go read that, that's in Deuteronomy 25.
Yeah. There's more detail.
Yes, more detail that we're giving you now. So everything seems to be going well so far, right? But unfortunately, Onan, the second son, also dies because he essentially didn't want to follow the Lord's instruction when it came to marrying and producing an heir for his deceased brother. And we see this in the Bible in Genesis 38 verses 9 and 10. The Bible says, but Onan was not willing to have a child who would not be his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground. This prevented her from having a child who would belong to his brother. But the Lord considered it evil for Onan to deny a child to his dead brother, so the Lord took Onan's life too.
Right. Which is crazy. Because, you don't want to do this? Fine, you will die also.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's not funny. But, you gotta go.
No, but it's crazy. But it's like disobedience, right?
Yeah, disobedience. And big picture, you are literally standing in the way of God's plan. So I need to remove you severely, but regardless, you need to go. And so now we have 2 dead brothers, and this is where the bamboozle starts. Rocky start, even before the bamboozle. There's a lot going on.
Tragic.
This is why we always give the caveat in the beginning of the episode that it's not going to be fun. Because people need to be warned. It should have a parental advisory in the front or whatever. We should create our own advisory.
Yeah. Biblical advisory.
This episode is biblically mature. For biblically mature audiences only. But anyway, sidetrack.
Yeah, let's move on because we will go down this rabbit hole.
So this is where the bamboozle starts. You can even say that there's actually bamboozling from both sides. It's a double bamboozle.
It's a double whammy.
It really is, and you're about to see why. So before we do that, though, let's recap. So we're recapping from the beginning. Judah has 3 sons. Tamar married the first son. He dies. She marries the second son. He also dies. But you see, Judah doesn't give Tamar the third son.
Bum, bum, bum.
But why would he do that? We're about to tell you. So, although it was customary of Judah to give the third son because you have more sons, so you have to still follow the law. This really just needs to keep happening. And Judah decided not to. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, the third son, his name is Shelah, was still too young to marry. So she would have to wait for him to be of age to marry him. We don't know how old he was. I really tried to look it up for you because I wanted to know myself, because I wanted to see the time frame of the whole story. And I was like, okay, well, he was young and then all the things, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, he was young. He was too young to marry. Number two, Judah understandably was not feeling great that his 2 older sons had died after they married Tamar. And at this point, he probably assumed if I give her my last son, he's going to die too.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. Like that thought pattern was very rational.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what's happening, but like, I'm not super excited to give you my last son.
There's hesitation for sure.
Yes, understandably. So at this point, we're in a situation where 2 sons have died. She's still a widow. The third one is too young. So Judah comes up with a plan. And I feel like we can already tell that this is going to go south because a human came up with a plan. So Judah tells Tamar, hey, go to your father's house and remain a widow until Shelah is old enough to marry. Right? So she can be taken care of. She will not be disgraced and all of the things. She'll eventually have a husband again. A few years go by and Tamar doesn't hear anything from Judah.
Right. Which, funny enough, he's like, I'll let you know.
Yeah. He's like, hey, don't call me, I'll call you, is what he said, right?
And then there was no call.
She's been living with these 3 brothers, right, in the same household and all these things. So when she leaves, she knows Shelah's age. So she goes to his father's house and she has her little tick calendar that we always talk about where she's counting down the days because she's aging as well, right? She wants to have children.
Yeah, she needs to have an heir for them, yes. She's trying to be obedient to the law.
Yes.
So I don't know if it was like, not that she was like in love with this third son or anything like that. It was like, this is what's supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm trying to be obedient and like give you a son for this lineage, right? So it makes sense. Like she's just trying to keep it straight.
And at some point, she was like, okay, now this boy is old enough to marry now. And she's like, I've been counting. I've seen him. I known him. So she's growing suspicious that she's being bamboozled. Mm-hmm. She can smell the bamboozle coming.
She's like, it's in the air.
And what does she do? She decides to do a little bamboozling of her own.
That's right. She said, oh, you gonna bamboozle me? I think I got a little bamboozle for you. So we see this. So we continue the story in Genesis, again, chapter 38, and we look at verses 12 through 22. So just bear with us, but it gets good. And by good, I mean bad. Okay? So it reads, some years later, Judah's wife died. After the time of mourning was over, Judah and his friend Hira the Adullamite went up to Timnah to supervise the shearing of his sheep. Someone told Tamar, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangements had been made for her to come and marry him. So she changed out of her widow's clothing and covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Then she sat beside the road at the entrance to the village of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. Judah noticed her and thought she was a prostitute since she had covered her face. So he stopped and propositioned her. "Let me have sex with you," he said, not realizing that she was his own daughter-in-law. "How much will you pay to have sex with me?" Tamar asked. "I'll send you a young goat from my flock," Judah promised. "But what will you give me to guarantee that you will send the goat?" she asked. "What kind of guarantee do you want?" he replied. She answered, "Leave me your identification seal and its cord and the walking stick you are carrying." So Judah gave them to her. Then he had intercourse with her, and she became pregnant. Afterwards, she went back home, took off her veil, and put on her widow's clothing as usual. Later, Judah asked his friend Hira, the Adullamite, to take the young goat to the woman and to pick up the things he had given her as his guarantee. But Hira couldn't find her. So he asked the men who lived there, "Where can I find the shrine prostitute who is sitting beside the road at the entrance to Enaim?" "We've never had a shrine prostitute here," they replied. So Hira returned to Judah and told him, "I couldn't find her anywhere." And the men of the village claimed they've never had a shrine prostitute here. Can I tell you how many times I feel like there should have been like some dramatic music or like a, because this story just gets better and better, or worse and worse, however you want to look at it. Like it just keeps piling up. Like if you're looking for a story that builds, like that's what this is doing. Like every turn, I feel like every sentence you read, you're like, oh no, it just gets worse. Oh no, there's more. Oh no, there's more. Oh no, there's more. So yes. So Judah definitely is being bamboozled, but at this point he doesn't know it, right? Like he's not aware of it. So this is just crazy. But it was to the extremes that Tamar felt like she had to go in order to use like trickery in order to be obedient in a way. You know what I mean? Like to keep the law, which is just, you know, this you can almost see like a desperation or like this need to be like, I'm not the one that's going to fail here. So I'm going to do everything I can. And if this is the way I'm going to do it, then this is the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it was the helping God aspect of things.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's crazy when I was reading it, the first thing that jumped out at me was that the verse says, someone told Tamar, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. Who is this someone? Because I feel like it's a woman, and I feel like she was planting a seed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, I noticed that he's going to be, you know, he's going to be working the shift, the morning shift, and you could just go by and see, like, it just seems wrong. Like, it seems like that person had motivation behind what they said.
Right. It wasn't Tamar doing it. It was another person who was like, hey, if you hadn't noticed, he's here. And it's like, huh? Why are you like butting into this situation? But, you know, like someone was meddling, trying to help out.
Right. Because let's pretend Tamar she was calm about the situation, you know?
Right. Like, you know, maybe a little worried or a little like, it's kind of feeling like it's taking long, but she's not in a point where she's like desperate or like feeling like, you know, it's lost cause kind of thing. You know, it doesn't share that. It just seems like, I feel like it's about time and I haven't heard anything.
And what if this other person was the one that just like set fire to this whole situation, right?
Yeah, it kind of feels like it pushed her over like the I'm just a little concerned to like, this is a crisis.
Right. Like maybe I should go check this out. And so that was the first thing. The second thing is that we see, because as you read the verses, you can see how the story is developing, and we can see how she changes. She's in her I'm in mourning outfit, right? Her widow outfit. And she disguises herself. So this is already leading up to no good, right? We don't know I'm sure she didn't know this whole prostitute thing was going to happen, or that he was going to think that she was a prostitute, all of this stuff. But she's disguising herself. So it's already setting a pretense of like, I'm going to go, I'm going to see something, no one's going to know it's me, and we'll just see what happens, right? The Bible tells us that he thinks that she's a prostitute. And then
Yes.
what does the homie do? She just goes along with the whole thing.
Like, I know his wife just died, or not just died, but like she died and he's already like, the time of mourning.
Right. He's a widower now. Yes.
But like, he's still an Israelite man and he's propositioning what he thinks is a prostitute. So it's like, do you realize what you're doing right now? And then the thing that also stuck out to me was the fact that he so easily left like his identification and his stuff to be like, aren't those things valuable to you? Like, that's part of who you are, and you're leaving them to someone who you're not even sure who they are. Because obviously when he sent them, he just assumed she'd be there. And, obviously they couldn't find her because, she was in disguise. But to me, that stuck out. Like, he had an identification seal and he let that go. And it's like how easily the enemy can trick us into that, right? Like, to me, that stuck out. Like, I'm sure that gets you in a lot of places and it signifies who you are in the town, wherever you are, in your family, whatever that means. So the fact that this encounter just became more important than his identity, basically.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So now we know that Judah had no idea, but she's pregnant. And so he's in the dark, right? He doesn't know. So we're going to continue reading a little bit more. So we continue in verses 24 to 26, still in chapter 38. It says, about 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law has acted like a prostitute. And now because of this, she's pregnant. And what does Judah say? He says, bring her out and let her be burned, Judah demanded. But as they were taking her out to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law. The man who owns these things made me pregnant. Look closely. Whose seal and cord and walking stick are these? Judah recognized them immediately and said, she is more righteous than I am, because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah. And Judah never slept with Tamar again. So the big reveal, he finds out he's been bamboozled.
I low-key think that the person that told Tamar, like, hey, your father-in-law's going to be here, is the same person that said, hey, she's pregnant. I don't know why. This person seems, I don't know. They keep reappearing. I was like, nah, it doesn't have to be the same person. I was just like, man, because there's always people in your life that want to start something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, they're being motivated by other things that is not the Spirit of God, and they want drama in your life. If they don't have any in theirs, or they do have some in theirs, they want to see some drama in yours. And if you're in a vulnerable position and you're susceptible, then you fall for it, because you're like, listen, my friend, they care about me. She just has my back. He just has my back. And it's funny because we see someone do that for Tamar, like, hey, your father-in-law's going to be here. And then we see someone in Judah's life, which is the guy that goes to take her the stuff, right? Like, he goes to like find, hey, where's the prostitute? And it's funny because he's complicit in the whole situation. Like, he's a widower, so he's no longer married. However, like you said, he's an Israelite man. He's one of the heads of the 12 tribes, and he should be a follower and believer in God. And he just slept with a prostitute, and you're helping him cover it up.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'll go do your dirty work over here and finish what you started. And it's like, goodness, all of this is wrong. But yeah, so how things got flipped, right? Like, just like here he was trying to, in a way, trick Tamar, keep her from, maybe bringing more tragedy to his life because of, his son's death and all that, his son's deaths. And he ends up being the one that's deceived and now in a bigger mess, basically. Because had he just been obedient, this could have, gone a very different way.
But now we'll never know.
Exactly. So yeah. So overall, Judah had this trick up his sleeve, and Tamar also had a trick up her sleeve.
Tamar's sleeves were bigger.
Yeah, she had a bigger sleeve. But over everything, God was using it all for his master plan, which is just crazy because that's what God does, right? It's crazy because we see these people's intentions, like we see their fear, their motives, their determination, and we also see these terrible results from our human decisions, our human hands. And then we also see that God works it out for their good, right? So eventually it's actually for the good of all humanity and for God's glory. And so it seems like they just made a mess of everything. But if you know the full story, and again, if you go to those genealogy episodes, but it's all in the lineage of Jesus, which is what was meant to happen. And so it's crazy that you see this and it seems like everyone's just screwing up and messing up and doing all the wrong things, but how God, even in these messes that feel like, oh, we can't fix that, that's terrible, he's like, no, I can use it for good. So this is one of those stories that shows us what happens when we take matters into our hands. And I feel like several of these people did that, right? So first we see like the second oldest son, right? The one after the first one that died. He refused to produce an heir. So therefore he wasn't following the law. And then we see Judah also refusing to give up his younger son. And then we see Tamar following instructions, leaving for her father's house. And then she comes back and disguises herself when she just felt like the time was, it was taking too long. So again, over and over, we see people doing things again, and that includes us, right? But in this story, we see them out of our own strength, leaning on our own understanding, and not relying on God. And so we're not letting God lead, letting him fight our battles, letting, the word that he's already promised, what he's laid out for him to do it, we're thinking like we somehow know better. So it's interesting because on the one hand, we see that Tamar was more righteous than Judah, although she also did things her own way, right? Like they both did things that they wanted to do selfishly in a way. She was determined to continue the lineage of her deceased husband and Judah's lineage by proxy. So in her deception and all that, she was just trying to be obedient, trying to stay true to what she thought was what was supposed to be done. And so for when we see in the scriptures, this seems to be like her motivation. And so lastly, we also want to get Tichi, and just to close, to give you another tidbit on the Levirate marriage. And this is for context as to why it was used. And by the way, this is also the way Ruth ended up marrying Boaz. And we know everyone loves that story because that's like a love story.
These are it's the same scenario, but that one is not as like sketchy as this one. That one is like way more cleaned up, but I thought that it was important to share this information because I'm like, if you like that story, you should be able to like this one as well. Because it's the same principle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so the Moody Bible commentary tells us that the custom of marrying the sonless widow of one's closest relative was intended as an important expression of maternal honor to ensure that one's mother, it would be provided for in old age. And we see that in Ruth 4:15, as well as of familial honor. So to ensure that the name of the deceased husband is maintained through a male heir. So it's for both sides of basically of the first couple. And additionally, as we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, eventually the custom was legally codified by God in the Mosaic Law. And again, you'll see that in Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 and 6. So there was a purpose to this law, even though many in this story didn't seem to agree with it or weren't quite like understanding of it, or maybe just kind of ignored it or didn't want to do it. We read that there was purpose behind it. There was a reason why this was done this way. So again, this is just a reminder that God always has a purpose for what he tells us to do and how we do it, even when we might not understand it fully ourselves or understand kind of like why all of this needs to be done. Like there is a reason why God made it this way. So although we will definitely fail at some of these things, and many times, we should always, again, kind of try to do our best to be obedient to the word of God, to just hear what God has for us and just be doers of what he's calling us to do and telling us to do.
Yes, it's crazy. It really is. And I feel like when we were preparing for this episode, like even at me reading the story and like preparing for the episode and stuff like that, I was like, man, a lot of these things, you only see them in hindsight. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Because in the moment, depending on where you are in your relationship with God, in the moment, you feel like what you're looking at and what you're thinking is the right move. It's like, I feel like this is a shortcut, or this is the way that I can get what I want. And then you like, for example, they didn't want to follow a law, which God put in place for a specific reason. But then you look at the law and you're like, well, God, like I do understand that that's what you want me to do. However, 2 of my sons have died and this is the last one I have. So I'm just not going to do it because I feel like if I do, then he's going to die. And it makes sense to me that I don't want my son to die. So I'm not going to do it. For any human, like logically, that makes so much sense.
Right. It feels like you're trying to to protect your third son because there seems to be something going on. So if you look at it maybe from Judah's perspective, it's like, well, he was trying to be protective. He was mourning his other sons. And so, it was a vulnerable time maybe. And so we feel justified, right? Or in this case, we can maybe see it from Judah's point and be like, well, I can kind of see where, he wasn't sure. Like he didn't want to give his third son up yet, wanted to kind of bend the rules.
Yeah, but bend the rules, like you said. And it doesn't feel like when you think about the scenario itself and how, the love of a father for a child and the fact that he's already mourned 2 children and all of these things, like I feel like it doesn't even feel like conniving or selfish or anything. It just feels like what he's doing fully makes sense. But that's the thing, keeping our mind on heavenly things, right? And understanding, not even understanding, but understanding, accepting, and trusting that God's ways are better. And the foundation to that is that his ways are higher than our ways. So you're not always going to understand why he's telling you to do something or why there's a specific rule, ordinance, or instruction from Jesus in the Bible, but it's always going to be for your good. And you just have to trust that. Right? Like you have to be able to grab onto that and be like, okay, this actually makes no sense because I'm going to give this woman my last son and he might still die, but I have to trust that God knows better than I do. Right? Like that's so scary.
Yeah. Am I trusting in God and knowing that if something were to happen like that was his plan? And it, as hard as it is, it's like, well, God, I put it in your hands. So whatever it is that you're doing, I'm going to believe that what you have next is because it's meant to be, like it's what you want. And I think also, like, I was just thinking this right now, but he's trying, again, we're just kind of thinking like we know from the scripture that he was like afraid, like say something might happen to my third son. But in doing that, he also took away like that honor, right, to his oldest son and to Tamar, because the whole point of the lineage giving the other son was so that they both could still be honored in the lineage. And so by, in a quote unquote, maybe protecting the third son, he now isn't honoring the marriage and what he had put together. So that's also part of it.
That's a whole different perspective, but it's true. And it's like anything in the Bible, right? Like there's so many layers to everything, which is why when we mention things, it's like, we can't get into that right now. We just got to focus on what we're talking about because it's so nuanced and there's so many layers and there's so many things that we will yet like not understand, not only because God is God, but because we weren't there, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There's certain things that are written and certain things that are not. And so, yeah, it's outrageous. And there's so much depth to all of these stories. But this is one of those stories that we just wanted to get into because we see how people are legitimately just taking things into their own hands and kind of doing what they want. And God is just faithful and he used it. And it's the lineage of Jesus and all of these people were redeemed. And we see Judah change later and he's just like a different person. And it's incredible. It's incredible.
But yeah, like if you had heard this story before, and I think a lot of us don't dive into it, but yeah, I can feel very much like, oh my gosh, like everyone's deceiving everyone. And how can God like honor this and all this? Or why would they do that? And you might question like the reason why Tamar did this, the reason why Judah did this. But really when you get to it, like there's, like you said, there's layers to all of this. And it's just so interesting and so powerful and so beautiful to see like God's plan and God's hand, even through all this, what seems to be chaos or craziness, like still come out the other side.
Definitely. That's literally the only way to end an episode. And just because we said it, you know that the episode is over. And we hope that you so enjoyed this story. We hope that you learned something today. We hope that this helped you understand better the lineage of Jesus. Like we said, we recorded that episode last year. So if you want to learn more about his lineage and how he used all of these people, this is what we recommend. Go listen to that episode or read the lineage in the book of Matthew. It's the first page of the book of Matthew. You'll find it. Find the stories of all of those people and see all of these very human people with very interesting, colorful stories that God used to like send Jesus into the world. That's the homework. Yeah, you're going to have a blast.
Yeah, if you need like a Bible study, something to get you through, like you haven't thought about what to read, I think that's great advice. Like go through the lineage, mark everyone that's through it, and then go to the Old Testament and find them and read their stories. I think that's great.
That would be awesome. And then when you do it, please let us know. If you have any questions, also please let us know. And as always, man, thank you so much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this episode today. And as always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.